Hello. Welcome to Upper James Toyota. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. It's my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce someone that I met when I was in the Kirkendall Neighborhood Association as a resident of Ward 1 and who I worked with on the Hamilton Arts Council as a board member. So without further ado, Mr. Brian McHattie. Councillor Brian McHattie.
Thanks very much, Ian. It's great to be here this morning up on Upper James Toyota. And I want to wish everybody a good morning this morning and welcome to what is a bit of a milestone this morning for the McHattie campaign. Today marks the day after the halfway point of my 100-day neighborhood tour that began on a beautiful day, beautiful sunny day, about 50 days ago in July in Sam Lawrence Park. Many of you were there that day, and I thank you very much for being here again this time around. I wonder if I could pass that off because it's a bit tight here. I promised to go to all 190 of Hamilton's neighborhoods in 100 days, and that means going to Stony Creek, to Glanbrook, to Ancaster, to Dundas, to Flamborough, and all throughout the old city of Hamilton. During those 100 days, I promised to meet with residents, to listen, to ask questions, to understand their concerns, to hear their ideas, and to share my own vision for a new Hamilton. 50 days later, I've been to 95 neighborhoods. I've met with hundreds and hundreds of Hamiltonians, and I've attended dozens of events with thousands of Hamiltonians. I've sat at kitchen tables, stood on front porches, walked neighborhood parks and nature trails, visited farms, community gardens, and community centers. I've been in business establishments, from shopping malls to restaurants, to garages, to fabric stores, and many more. I've walked, I've hiked, I've hustled, I've even crawled on Friday nights on James Street North. I've seen warplanes, I've seen peace poles, I've seen potholes, you've seen a few of those too. I've seen potlucks. I've seen expressions of faith and expressions of fellowship, and so much more. All done wearing my 100-day neighborhood tour shoes from Miller Shoes on James Street North. And there they are, looking a little worse for wear than they did back at Sam Lawrence Park, but pretty in good shape. Although I'm only at the halfway point of my tour, I can tell you that every single one of the last 50 days has been a day of learning for me. After 11 years on council, I've learned a few things about our city, but the only way to learn what you really need to know as a great mayor is to get out there and meet as many Hamiltonians as possible, listening to them from all walks of life. To meet them where they live, where they work, and where they play, with their friends, with their kids, with their grandkids, and even with their pets. This tour has really been about the lives we live in our city and in our neighborhoods with the ones we love. I don't care if that sounds corny, because I know that's what this city is built on. Let me share 3 experiences with you from the tour. The first one, I was welcomed into the home of a young Crown Point neighborhood family who live on Lyndhurst Street, just north of Beach Road. We sat at their kitchen table. We talked about Hamilton and the future of transit in Hamilton. This family doesn't operate a car. They use the HSR every day to get where they need to go. They talked about the lack of parkland in their neighborhood, and that was important for their family, and they also reflected on other families, and we met other families on the street and kids in that neighborhood. This family wasn't asking for much, really, just the ability to get around the city and to be able to take their kids to a park where they could play. The second experience I'll share this morning is a conversation I had with an Ancaster farmer. We discussed the Greenbelt legislation. We're all happy as citizens to protect the farmland, and we like the Greenbelt from that perspective. But the farmer, he helped me to understand that it doesn't necessarily protect farmers themselves. It puts limitations on what farmers can do with the land they own. Next year, the provincial government will be reviewing the Greenbelt legislation, and I think our local farmers will be very, very helpful with Council in discussing the concerns that they have with that legislation. The third instance I have this morning for you is a meeting I had with one of Hamilton's most successful restaurateurs, and concerns arose about her experience with City Hall as a business owner getting approvals to expand her businesses. She said we need to do a better job of helping entrepreneurs, big and small, get their projects through City Hall in a timely fashion. And while I'm on the topic of business, I want to announce a commitment I will implement if I'm elected mayor. Hamilton needs to be open for business and to be open to business. That has to be more than just a slogan. It has to be a way of thinking and a way of acting. On this tour, too many business people have told me of their frustrations with trying to open or to expand a business in this city. Their stories are consistent in tone, in detail, and in personal and financial impact. Some will tell you working through the red tape at City Hall was almost more difficult than risking everything to start or expand their business. I'll be blunt. That's not only good enough, that's not smart enough, not in the new Hamilton. Look, we've got rules and regulations for a reason, but you don't have to break the rules to follow the rules faster. That's why, as mayor, I would sit down with Chris Murray, our city manager, and Jason Thorne, our general manager of economic development and planning, and with members of City Council to establish an open for business contract between business owners and the City of Hamilton. The contract would detail expectations, requirements, and clear timelines. It will be based on a mutual understanding and mutual respect. In business, time is money, and I want to make sure more money is invested in Hamilton rather than wasted trying to cut through bureaucratic red tape. Why is this a priority? Because over 80% of the new jobs created in Canada are created by small, independent entrepreneurs. That means growth in the number of new jobs and new tax revenues will be coming from small companies. Our hosts today at Upper James Toyota are Ilya Panassi and his father Marek. Ilya is building on the foundation established by his father. Today, over 100 people earn their livings directly through Panassi's group of dealerships. The more they grow, the more Hamiltonians find meaningful employment. I want all of the businesses throughout this city, such as the ones run by the Panassi family, to flourish. And I want the City of Hamilton and all of its employees and elected officials to help them get there as easily as possible while still following the rules. This is how things need to be done in the new Hamilton. Our economic goals need to be as strategic as possible. Good enough is no longer good enough for Hamilton. We deserve great. There's also a short video on my website, McHattie2014.ca, that explains this position. I want to thank all of you for being here today to mark the halfway point of what is and will continue to be a great Hamilton journey, my 100-day neighborhood tour. What I'm hearing, discussing, and learning is already helping to shape my platform. And on that point, you'll be hearing much more about my platform and its details over the coming days and weeks. I can say honestly, my platform has been made better because of this tour, because of the time Hamiltonians have taken to share their concerns and their ideas with me. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Councillor, you've been on council for 10 years.
Right.
You always hear that we're going to cut red tape, we're going to fix this problem. As mayor, you're just one vote. What would be different about you being mayor and you being councillor that would change to solve this problem?
Well, I think the key, you're quite right, Joey. As mayor, you only have one vote in our system. So the key for a mayor is to have that collaborative relationship with other councillors, to spend much more time with the other councillors, and with staff than it has been done in my recent experience with mayors. So to spend time in their offices, get their commitment to this change. And also the key here will be a commitment with city staff as well. They're used to operating in a certain way. One of the things in playing this out in some details is each time a new developer comes in, or a business owner who wants to expand or start a new business, we need to identify a staff person as the champion, and I'll use that term specifically as the champion for that project. And their job would be to shepherd that project all the way through the process. As you know, projects require approvals from all sorts of different departments and divisions. The planning department should be the lead, and the champion will be in the planning department, one of the planners. But they also have to work with the building department, transportation group, all sorts of different folks. So they'll be responsible for following it all the way through. The contract, a written contract, will be to commit to a particular timeline and to stay in touch with that developer, that small business owner, over that period of time, reporting back on a regular basis to make sure the project's still on track. What has happened during those weeks and months as it goes through the process, what has changed, if anything, why we're requiring the studies that we require. Do we need those studies? I think we have to have discussions with that. But in order to put it in place, we need it led by the mayor. It needs to be at the mayor level, at that hierarchy level of the political process. As you know, we've got an Open for Business subcommittee right now at the city, this past term on council. And it's sort of under one of our standing committees, down some distance in the hierarchy. This initiative needs to be led by the mayor, and it has to be seen to be led by the mayor right across the corporation. Yeah, the Small Business Enterprise Center we have down on the main floor of City Hall does a good job. It's a spot where people walk in the door of City Hall, and that's where they go first to talk about their business idea and to begin the process. What happens is that when it gets into the various approvals through planning in the building department and various other departments, that's when things go awry. And the experiences I've had, there are two that come to mind right in Ward 1. Where there are purpose-built student housing buildings that are being constructed. One of it is an existing building that's being modified. The other one is a building from scratch. And very clear timelines, because you remember in their case, they have to be open in time for September for the students coming in. Otherwise, they miss a whole year of potential rentals. So we need to be really sensitive to the timelines that the particular developments have. My experience has been when it gets into the city development approval process, that's where it goes awry. I really think it's a culture issue. I think it's the way that we see things. There's different departments that have different approvals, and they're fairly isolated in the way that they deal with these development applications. They ask for an awful lot of studies, and there's no requirement to justify those studies. Each staff person can ask for 3 or 4 studies if they want under their area of jurisdiction, and there's no sense as to why they ask for studies one time instead of another. And then as the process goes, it gets lost in the process. So there's not a clear contact for the developer or the small business owner to reach the city. It ends up being the councillor. And we've got to delve into the planning process and try and unravel things, or trying to determine where things have taken a left turn, where they should have taken a right turn. So that's the kind of thing I think you'll hear from most of the city councillors.
So how much will it cost to implement this idea?
My sense, it won't be much of anything, Joey. I think it's, again, a culture change. It's a commitment from right from the city manager and the general manager of planning and economic development on down, all through the director of planning and the various hierarchies throughout the system. And it's really a culture change. And of course, Chris Murray, our city manager, talks about this culture change, that we need to get staff who are committed to serving our citizens. So I think it's primarily a process-oriented type thing, but to actually have a written contract which specifies some timelines, understanding that on both sides, the developer may have a hiccup in their financing, for example, and that may affect the timelines, or there may be a showstopper where a contaminated sediment is found along the process, and that may alter those timelines. But it's an agreed upon change to the timelines that will keep that contract intact throughout the project.
So let's say I'm a small business person, I have an idea, I have everything I need, my financing, my location, my lease.
Yeah.
I want to open a coffee shop on King William, we'll use this as an example.
Right.
How long do you think it should take from the day I walk in City Hall to the day that I'm able to open and conduct sales?
Yeah. Well, depending on the complexity, it sounds like a simple application, the one that you're describing, Joey. I would think less than 3 months. That should put in place. And it's interesting you mentioned the small shop owner, as I've run into a number of those folks up in Waterdown. There was a falafel shop, I remember particularly, Ottawa Street, a cafe, and those folks, there's not a lot of margin for error. They only have enough money to invest in their business to get it started. It's a very difficult decision, I imagine, to make that commitment to begin with. And in both those cases, they had to enter into a lease with the person that owned the building where the cafe would be, and they start paying rent based on what they expect the timeline to be at City Hall, just based on their own knowledge. There's no contract in place, and then things start sliding. And the Ottawa Street example, they had to pay rent about 6 months before they were actually able to open the cafe, and that was obviously devastating for a small business owner. So again, we need that commitment, the 3 months in the example that you described. They know that ideally working with the owner of that property, they can start paying paying rent in the 3 months plus one day, and they'll have everything in place to move ahead. Yeah. Pardon me, Kevin? Sorry, Kevin, I'm missing your. Yeah. Well, I think some of it has just sort of reinforced some ideas that we've had. Not surprisingly, probably one of the two biggest things I'm hearing is the condition of our roads and the potholes, both main roads, but also neighborhood streets as well. People are very concerned about that, and they're talking about the condition of their cars, which might get them in to get repairs at Upper James or other places, but they're concerned about that. And they continue to be concerned about their taxes. And we had the tax competitiveness study come to council this past month, and we know we're still about 10% higher than our comparators on the residential side in particular. So I've had an opportunity to explain how that's got better over the years. That report also talked about that, and how the industrial residential tax flip has happened from the days when we had all the industries down on Burlington Street, and of course the paramount importance of attracting more industry to Hamilton. So that tax, those are the two primary issues that a lot of folks share. A lot of folks are interested and aware of the rapid transit discussion. There's been lots of coverage in the media on that. Some people favor the A line, the bus rapid transit system up the mountain. Others have interest in the light rail transit and are passionate about it. Others don't necessarily understand why we'd want to do an LRT in the lower city, and that gives me an opportunity as one councillor, one supporter of that idea, to explain the redevelopment plan for the lower city and how it's really about that, at least as much as it is about transportation. So those are some of the things. The one thing that sticks in my mind in particular on the A line, which was important, was the interest in connecting to the GO train station and the airport. People would hope, and there'd be a lot of other changes that would have to occur, but to get more people flowing towards our airport, we need to get more, it's a chicken and egg situation, we'd have to get more flights up there for people to go to. Lots of details there, but that was interesting to hear.
So how do you make this happen, this 3-month guarantee? What accountability measures are in place to ensure that it happens? And are there any plans to compensate business owners if the guarantee is not met?
Well, I think we'd be in trouble if we start talking about compensating people. We had that challenge when we closed roads in front of businesses, and it certainly causes heartache and hardship for those businesses, but we don't compensate them for that because that would be a difficult undertaking for the municipality. But I think it needs to be this idea of a written contract, and I haven't thought through how it would be publicized, how people would know that contract's in place. Certainly the small business owner would have the contract, the director of planning, general manager of planning would have the contract, and it could be referred to throughout that period of time. I haven't, just thinking about you, Joey, in the open and transparency side of things, the open government side of things, whether there would be a way to actually put that on the web or publicize it in such a way as people see the commitment and are able to refer to that commitment over time.
And how are you feeling coming into the final stretch of the campaign? We're only 10 days away from Labor Day.
Right.
What do you think is your biggest challenge to overcome in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think maintaining momentum on the next 50 days. It's really interesting how it's happened. It's the first 30, 40 days were kind of slow, and your boy, day 100 is a long way away. The last 10 days have been a blur. It's really moved fast forward, and it's the kind of thing when you're off on holidays for a couple of weeks, the first 4 or 5 days go fairly slowly, and you're going, this is great, it's going to be a long holiday, and the last week of your holiday just zips right on by. So I anticipate from here on in it's going to be a quick run all the way to October 27th. I think for us it's maintaining the momentum. This idea is over 100 days, so we need to maintain the interest in it. I can tell you that people out on the streets really are respecting the fact that someone running for mayor, myself, is taking on the challenge of getting to all the different neighborhoods and knocking on doors in all those different neighborhoods. They really respect that, and I've got folks saying, hey, I'm going to vote for you because you've made the effort. And also wanting to hear about platform and policy, but that's a key thing, so we've got to keep that momentum up. The campaign expenses, as per the Municipal Act, the Elections Act, I think we'll release after the election, just as the requirement is. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for coming this morning. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.